Hello, everybody. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. And I have a returning guest on the show today. You know, we received such a great response from the first time we had Mr. Robin Hills on the show. We wanted to bring him back for a business update. Also, we have a big announcement. He has a brand new book that he's written and he's released, and it's going to be a bestseller like his first book. I mean, he really has a unique way of looking at business, a unique way of looking at people, a unique way of looking at personality. And of course, when we think about Robin, we think about emotional intelligence. I actually booked longer time today than usual because there's so much to unpack. The world is changing at a very, very fast pace, pardon me. And Robin has a unique look at emotional intelligence, and in particular, linking together the outputs from assessments. He's real big on assessing teams, assessing people, and then they give real practical relevance to improve effectiveness and productivity. And what that means in a nutshell is you need Robin for your company because he's going to help it. Robin, welcome to the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
Oh, Andy, it is great to be back on the show again. Thank you for having me. It's been a year.
It's been a year. I'm so happy to have you. You're based out of Greater Manchester, of course, and you're the founder of Ei4Change. You have over 35 years of successful commercial and what I call leadership experience. And you've really become a worldwide leading expert on emotional intelligence. We want to talk about it. We want to get deep into it. But before we go deep, let's go broad. Let's pull the lens back to 30,000 feet. Tell us about Ei4Change, what it's all about, and then we're going to go.
Sure, Ei4Change. I started Ei4Change about 15, 16, 17 years ago during the last financial crash, which is probably not the best time to start a business. So it certainly tested my emotional intelligence and it certainly tested my emotional resilience. So Ei4Change is emotional intelligence for change. We look at affecting change through individuals, through teams, and through organizations, through the application, as you said, Andy, through the practical application of emotional intelligence. And I think really before we go any further, I'll just quickly define emotional intelligence for everyone so that they know exactly what we're talking about. We've got these two words, emotional and intelligence, and they don't seem to go very well together, but they do. It's being smart, it's being intelligent around your emotions. So how do you combine your thinking with your feelings in order to make good quality decisions and build up authentic relationships and thus take action that is appropriate? It can't be more complicated than that, but it is easy to say, very difficult to do.
Yeah, it makes sense. Let's give some practical advice along the way to the entrepreneurs watching the show and everyone else. As an entrepreneur, we're thinking all the time. But as an entrepreneur or business owner, we're also getting these gut feelings or these emotions about a certain aspect of our business or a certain action step. Do we take that action step? Do we not take it? My mind may be telling me one thing, but my feelings are telling me something different. How do we organize those feelings and thoughts in a meaningful way as an entrepreneur?
Oh, there's a great question, Andy. Let's unpick it because a lot of people are not aware of the fact that we have three brains within our body. Everybody is well aware of the brain that we've got in our head, and that is the one that we use for thinking. Now we have a neural network, a second brain around the heart, and that is the one that really helps us to determine how we should be working with and using our emotions. And then we have a third brain, which is a very extensive neural network around the gut. So when people are talking about getting a gut feeling for things, it's inherently a feeling that we get within our gut, our enteric system. And the gut feeling is great. It will tell us what is right or wrong, whether the decision is good or bad. It's nothing more complicated than that. Our heart will put the emotions around it, and our brain will put the thinking around it. So if we're aware of that, we don't have to know anything any more complicated in terms of neurobiology. But if we're aware of that, yeah, let's go with our gut. Let's go with what we feel is right. And let's think about it to make sure that we're being smart with those feelings and we're using emotional intelligence.
Wow. I love it. I mean, for the people watching the show, rewind what Robin just said. You just got a gem right there. I mean, that's really awesome because I speak to so many entrepreneurs. And when we talk about the entrepreneurial journey, Robin, we talk about business, we talk about leadership, CEO, founders, C-level executives. I can't tell you how many times throughout the career of these entrepreneurs that I talk to, they say to me, Andy, I wish I would have listened to my gut. I mean, they say it quite often. And the problem, or the challenge, I should say, for entrepreneurs is they're not sure what it is. Is it their gut? Is it their heart? Is it their brain? Which one's talking to them? Which one should they listen to? Which one's coming to the surface? Which one's being suppressed? How do we, as entrepreneurs, know which one is the right one to listen to?
Well, I think what we've got to do is to look at it two or three ways. Start with our thinking. Does it feel right? And what does our gut tell us? Is it right or is it wrong? Or do it the other way around. Does this feel right or wrong? How do I feel about it? How do I now rationalize it? So if we think about using the three brains in that way, we are actually being more emotionally intelligent without even being aware of it. And what I want to add in here, Andy, is another layer of complexity and really building in the entrepreneurship that you're referring to and that your listeners are very keen to hear about. Artificial intelligence cannot be entrepreneurial. All artificial intelligence can do is to use the cognitive bit, the brain elements, to rationalize and to use logic to make decisions. They don't do it from an emotional perspective, and they certainly don't do it from an intuitive perspective. So in terms of keeping ourselves future-proof, we've got to learn to be more entrepreneurial and to utilize our thinking with our feelings to determine how we're using our intuition. Does this feel like the most appropriate decision that I'm making? What does my gut tell me? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. What does your instinct tell you? Now, those are the bits. Those are the key elements that we can do as human beings that the robots can't do and will never do. Yep, we can replicate the pathways in terms of the logic. We can't replicate the pathways in terms of the heart. We certainly haven't got the gut feeling there within the robots because they just don't have that part.
Wow, that's great. I want to talk about the robots and AI a little bit more. So I'll break it down in my mind so I can keep it clear. Brain, heart, and gut, or gut, heart, and brain, it works along a continuum. And when we think about a decision, you can go brain, heart, gut, or gut, heart, brain to help you decide which way to go. And AI's coming into play now, and they can, or AI can, I'm going to call them they're not a person. AI can replicate, for the most part now, let's say the brain part, but the heart and the gut part, it will never replicate. So what you're saying to an entrepreneur is fully commence on making your gut and your heart part more powerful. Learn more, feel more, take classes, take your types of tests, which I want to talk about later in the show, to learn more about emotional intelligence, because that's the area, the heart and the gut, that will never be replicated by the computers, right?
Yeah, and to a certain extent, a lot of the brain will never be replicated. I mean, you and I are talking together across thousands and thousands of miles. Yet, because of our interconnection, we're actually creating new pathways in our brains that help us in terms of empathy. And you and I have an interconnection, even though it is miles and miles apart. Now, this brings into play even more complex dynamics that we do not fully understand, and that's quantum dynamics. Not even going to go there because that is way beyond my comprehension at this stage. And I think it's way beyond our comprehension as human beings, but we're actually starting to question this and realizing that we can have this influence over miles. How does that happen? How does it work? It's not a kind of physical, we're both in the same room making it happen. As I say, we're doing it through an electronic system. We're doing it through Zoom. So how are those interconnections taking place? We don't know. We just don't know. Isn't it fascinating?
Yes, it really is. And this segment reminded me of going into a good friend of mine's office about 3 weeks ago. And I went into his office space, and he had Chat GPT, and he was asking Chat questions about his business. What should I do? What type of marketing plan should I put in place? Should I offer a new product? Is it a good time of year to introduce the product? Where should I have the product manufactured? What are the pros and cons? What's the cost per click and cost per acquisition going to be on Google? Everything. And he got done with Chat, and I said to him after, well, did you get the answer that you wanted? And he said, yeah, but I'm just not sure about it. I'm not feeling right about it. Something inside's telling me maybe I shouldn't do this, even though Chat's telling me this is a good opportunity for my company. And that's talking about that gut and that heart versus the semi-brain that Chat has. When a company reaches out to you, or somebody reaches out to you, Robin, and they say, hey, we've heard about you. We've seen you on the daises. We've heard you at conferences. We've seen you on the shows. We've seen you on television. We've read your book. We've read your articles. Very prolific writer. What's the first conversation sound like? What's the movement from your perspective to get these C-level executives or these companies to start increasing their emotional intelligence? Is it testing first and then everything kind of stems from there? How does it all work?
I think you're asking a very logical series of questions based around what it is that I would do with an organization. The first thing that I need to do within an organization is to have a conversation with them. What is it that they're currently doing? What's working? What do they want to do more of? What is it that they're doing that's right? Rather than going down the route of, well, what's not right, let's try and fix it. Let's have a look at what is going right and what they want to do more of. How does that make them feel? How can they get people aligned with their vision? How can we give people that alignment, and how can we give people that feeling of purpose and that feeling of belonging? And I think all of these are important things in terms of taking a business and organization forward. We've just got to answer a very, very fundamental question as to what is an organization? Now, an organization is not a logo. It's not a series of buildings. It's not a price on the stock market. It's not a website. An organization is all of those things, yet it's not. An organization is a network of people. And that is really what we're tapping into. How can we get that network of people to work more efficiently and much more effectively? And the way that we do this is getting people to connect. And the way in which people connect is, dare I say it, through their emotions. And people don't have to like certain individuals. They just have to respect them. And part of getting people to work with their emotional intelligence is helping them to understand this idea and this concept of empathy. Now, empathy is not sympathy, so it's not going along feeling sorry for people. It's trying to understand things from the other person's perspective. You don't necessarily have to agree with that perspective. You just have to understand. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are seeing empathy in terms of we have to agree. I don't have to prove that you were wrong in order to be right. So what we have to do is to try and understand each other better. And if the other person has a completely different way of thinking, we've just got to respect that. Yet we've got to understand. And again, if I keep pulling this back to artificial intelligence, I make no apology for it, because the robot's artificial intelligence cannot empathize. It either understands its own way or it doesn't. And, you know, I'm not going to knock artificial intelligence. I'm not going to knock your entrepreneur that was feeding questions into ChatGPT or any other system like that, because they are very, very good systems. I use them all the time. I use them every day. They help me to clarify my thinking. But what I've got to do is to take their outputs and say, is this inherently right? Can I use this? And more often than not, I have to change some of the outputs in order to make it right, because we've got to bear in mind that all of these systems have been programmed by a human being or a group of human beings, and these systems have inherent biases within them through their programming. Now, some of these biases are not right, and some of them are, okay, yeah, they're fine, and some of them are very right. But it takes a human being, it takes you or I, to determine what's right, what's wrong, what we can use, what we can't use. And if we're doing it at a very, very simple level, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot, fine. But, you know, chunk this up to the artificial intelligence fear of it overtaking the world, you can forget that. It's just not sophisticated enough. I mean, another example, put into Copilot, create me a dog that's been blown around in the wind, create an image of a dog being blown around in the wind, and it cannot do it. It'll come up with something that resembles vaguely what you're looking at, but it just does not provide you with a good quality image that will do what it is that you're asking it to do. Now, having said that, I mean, I've tried it a few times, and I think 1 time out of 10, I might get a perfect image. So if we're looking at 1 out of 10, that's not good enough for anybody in business. And I think what we've got to do is just be realistic. It's going to be very, very, very good. It is not going to take over the world.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Let's lean into the AI paradigm a little bit, because corporate culture, you think about it, technology can't drive a corporate culture. It has to be, like you said, those emotions. And now, versus the way it was, let's say 5 years ago in Silicon Valley, people want to stay with a company. They're looking at a longer term sort of commitment to a company that they resonate with, that they have that emotional intelligence with, that the people are working as a team that they respect. A few years back, it was, let's go to a company, let's stay for 2 years, let's move to the next company and keep moving. I'm seeing today more and more people, especially young people, are sort of looking at it, I want to find a home. And how important is that culture? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but I want you to expound on it a little bit. How important is that culture to keeping your employees happy and long-term assets to the company?
Oh, a culture is absolutely vitally important. And the culture comes from the top. It comes from the CEO and from the executive board. And you've then got the leaders and the managers within the organization that are interpreting that culture and are driving a culture themselves or a climate within their team that is based upon how they are aligned within the business. Now, the majority of leaders will be aligned within the business and will do a very, very good job. But many of you guests will have said this many times before, and all I will do is repeat it as being relevant now, Andy. People don't leave jobs, people leave managers. And I think this is the important point here. If the manager is not creating the right climate, if the manager is not aligning themselves with the values of that individual so that that person feels that they do not have a home, they can exercise some choices. Now, these choices are incredibly hard for some people, but the choices are there. They can choose to stay or they can choose to go. Now, the majority of people, it's very easy to say, oh, you can go and get yourself another job within an organization. Great. First of all, you've got to find an organization that is willing to have you, is looking for your skill set. And also, you've got to determine the impact that it's going to have on your life outside of work. A lot of people will go to work to earn a salary. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But people then become reliant on that salary. I'm not going to put a judgment on that. And they have to build that choice into the decisions that they make. Can I afford to give this job up? Can I afford not to be paid? Is the situation that I've got with my manager, my leader, is the intensity of the conflict so great that it's affecting my mental health and my well-being, which is beyond the money that I earn? So I'm prepared to actually forego salary for a number of months. Or can I shut up and put up for the time being because I need the money and utilize my time and resources appropriately for doing the best job that I possibly can, and at the same time look for the opportunities outside of the organization in order to make the change when it becomes appropriate?
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned management. Can we give some practical advice, some steps, some actionable action steps, if you call it, say that 3 times in a row, for the managers watching the show about how they can improve? I mean, I know you've written books about it, but some practical advice to the CEOs, the C-level executives, the managers that are watching the show, Robin, about what they can do to improve, to help make the people that work with them more connected to the management team and to the business.
Yes, one of the questions that I would ask any senior manager within the organization is, how do you want your people to feel? Now, a lot of CEOs will want their people to feel aligned, feel valued, feel good about coming to work. Yet they're cross, they're angry with them all the time because targets are being missed. People are not doing the right thing, whatever that might be. People are drawing on more resources than they need to, whatever that might be. There's a whole host of things. So if a CEO and a leadership team are inherently angry, it's not conducive to the climate to create an environment where people are thinking, oh, I really do want to go to work. I'm inherently happy there. They are helping me to improve my performance. Now, that's not to say that anger and disgust and annoyance and being cross with people is not inappropriate. There are going to be certain times when that is highly appropriate. Somebody has gone against the core values of an organization. Somebody has sworn at a client. Somebody has stolen something, whatever that may be. There are times when those types of emotions, intense emotions that are unpleasant, are very, very relevant. But the majority of times, what you need to do as an entrepreneur or a CEO or any other senior executive is to loosen up a little bit and to try and create an environment where people are doing their best work. It might not look the way that you would want it looking, but is it fit for purpose? It might be that it's better than you thought it might look. You need to go with that, learn from it, have the humility to say, their idea was better than mine.
Yes, I
So
love it. And
this is all
Robin,
about being emotionally intelligent.
yeah, it's interesting because I'm listening to you and I'm putting myself in the mind of the employee who's working, let's say, with a manager. And if the manager inside emotionally doesn't feel good about the employees, but he or she tries to put on a smiley face, let's say, those employees also have brain, heart, and gut. So they're feeling probably it's not connected. My manager's being sweet, but I know underneath my gut's telling me he's really mad or she's really mad or he or she is not really connected in the right way with mind, heart, and gut. So how does the manager connect it all so that the employee really feels through their gut and their heart that the message coming across is real versus some phony baloney manager telling them to have a nice day kind of a thing?
No, this is exactly what we're talking about. It's a case of being authentic. And a leader needs to have the humility to be able to say to another individual, person that we're working for them, I'm not feeling good about our relationship. It's not working at the moment. There's no point in me smiling sweetly and saying, oh, everything's all right. We really do need to address this. And it's going to be hard for me as the leader to say some of these things, but we need to bring everything open on the table. And I need to understand what it is that I'm doing that's causing you problems, because I will be sharing with you what it is that you're doing that is causing me problems. And it's having that adult to adult conversation, which it's not easy, is it? Is it, Andy? But we've got to learn to have those conversations and to be more open with people. We are going to upset people along the way. We're going to antagonize people along the way. We're not going to feel good about it. It's not going to feel pleasant. But if it inherently feels like the right thing to do and it's being authentic, that's better than, oh, everything's going fine at the moment. Yeah, all we've got to do is just carry on the way we're doing and everything will sort itself out in the long run.
Yeah, I love it. I want to talk about your coaching toolbox, of course, and the authority guides you've written. But before I do, how do you feel about this concept that you hear sometimes where managers and C-level executives, you want to catch people doing things right? In other words, almost like a teenager, you want to catch that teenager doing things right instead of always harking on them about what they're doing wrong. Is that something that helps managers or CEOs move in the right direction by finding their people that work with them doing things right and acknowledging that in a certain way?
Yes, I think it works both ways. And I will often say to people who are being led and managed by inappropriate leaders and managers, as much as I will say to leaders and managers, you've got to treat everybody with kindness, with respect, and almost you've got to bear in mind that they are teenagers, they are children dressed up as adults. But what we've got to do is to make things simple for them in order that they can do the right thing. But they need to know what the right thing is to start with. So it's down to clarity of communication to start with. And then praising people for doing the right thing. A lot of leaders and a lot of managers will, they've lost the art of a very, very simple set of phrases that will help people and encourage people to do the right thing, will make them feel good and make them feel valued. And they are two very, very, very common words, but a lot of senior people find it very, very difficult to say them. Please and thank you.
Yeah,
and
I
if
love it.
a lot of CEOs were to learn the art of saying please and thank you, they would get much better performance from their people. It's very simple, yet people just forget the basics. Now, I have a 3-year-old grandson. He's a wonderful young man, and he has an ability to work with his emotions very, very positively, which is what my daughter tells me. He lives about 200 miles away, so I don't see him on a regular basis. So I can't claim having that influence on him. But at the moment, we are working with him as a 3-year-old, that if he wants something, he has to say please. And if he receives it, he has to say thank you. And it makes him a very, very pleasant young man when he goes outside into the big wide world. Oh, he's such a polite young man. Well, he is, because he's been told to use the right words, and he's learned to use them. And he's learned that using them appropriately gets a really good response, and he feels good using them. Why is it that as we go through our teens and into our early adulthood, we just stop using those words? I suppose it's because it's felt that they're babyish. They are not babyish. They are being emotionally intelligent. And what they are doing is they're enabling you to authentically connect with somebody and to give them what it is that they need to do a good job. A please or a thank you.
Wow, I love that so much, because I thought about that myself a lot. And I said to myself, if you say please and thank you, it puts you ahead of 80% of all the others out there that aren't saying please and thank you. And that's probably the percentage. And even for me, I'm cognizant of this, because even in my text messages to my employees, I always make a decision when it's appropriate to say thank you and please. And I say thank you very much. Actually, I put the very much on there as well. It's a great, great piece of advice for all managers and CEOs and C-level executives and everybody in the world to say please and thank you. It just puts you above. It puts you in the right mind frame. It puts the person on the other end of the message in the right mind frame as well, because words matter. And what you're really doing is you're showing people respect. And that's what they really want, and that's what they need. Now, I want to talk about the coaching toolbox, the images of resilience. How do people get the coaching toolbox? Is this something that you offer to all companies? What's the process to get involved to really broaden their understanding of resilience, sort of at the personal, team, and organizational level?
Oh, the toolbox is something that I worked with an organization called RSVP Design, and they provide experiential tools for organizations to support and help them with training. And they approached me about 10 years ago and said, we haven't got anything in our toolkit around resilience. And I've said to them, well, one of the toolkits that I use quite frequently from your organization is a toolkit called Images of Organization. And these are metaphors around people behaving within organizations. You know, there are people working in a garden. There are people at a pit stop. There are people playing in an orchestra. There are people trying to get to the moon using a series of ladders. There are people pulling on ropes in all different directions. These are the images, and they are brilliant at opening up discussions around what's going on within an organization. So I said to RSVP Design, well, leave it with me and my colleague, Doug Haynes, and we'll go away and do some research, and we'll come up with images of resilience. And this is the toolkit that you're referring to, Andy. So we've come up with some brilliant images around resilience, what it looks like for people. So we've got some toys that are bouncy and rubbery. So people will talk about bouncing back, not necessarily accurate, but this is about their metaphor. We've got a plant surviving in a desert where all the other plants are dying. We've got somebody sailing a yacht in a harbour, and they can manoeuvre very easily and very quickly. And you've got a great oil tanker in the background, which takes a long, long time and a lot of energy to move. You've got people who are going through a maze, looking for a trophy right at the beginning of the maze, right in the middle of the maze. I mean, these are some of the images that we've come up with. RSVP design through their artists have translated into images, and they are great as a coaching tool to enable people to look at the images and pull out the images that resonate with them. And they're very, very good in terms of creating an environment to have a cathartic conversation. Because if you and I were talking about, oh, what does resilience look like? We'd come up with some kind of superficial conversation. Whereas if people are talking through a medium of images and cartoon images, they can actually say, oh, well, this situation is occurring. This is causing me to feel that way. This is happening. This is what works. This is what doesn't. So as a coaching toolbox, it works incredibly well. So RSVP Design, they own the rights to it. And I would point people in their direction, which is rsvpdesign.co.uk. And I believe they have the .com URL as well. So
Wonderful.
Just go and have a look. They've got some wonderful tools to help with training. I'm just mentioning them because I'm a satisfied customer. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever, other than the fact that I've helped to support them with images of resilience.
I love them. That's called paying it forward. I wanted to talk to you about managers that aren't good managers. So sometimes in an organization, you have a sales team, and one of the salespeople ends up being the superstar. And then a C-level executive has this great idea to take that superstar salesman and make him or her the manager. And that it's a totally different set of skills. And now they're the manager, but they don't have the skills to really be a great manager as they were a great salesperson. That's just one example. How often do you come across managers that are in the wrong position? And how do you get them to become a great manager if they don't have the current skill set to be a great manager?
This happens more regularly than it should do, Andy. And I think it's the pressures of society that drives it as much as organizations, because we're looking for the next promotion. We're looking to better ourselves, and people perceive themselves as not being successful in their career unless they've become a manager. Now, some people are brilliant, absolutely brilliant salespeople, and they're very happy going out into the big wide world selling. It's inherent within their nature. They are very good at it. And the organization will, as you say, will come along and say, right, we're going to promote you. We're going to make you a manager. Now, the person is going to be very, very grateful for them for that opportunity. It takes a very mature salesperson to say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm actually developing my career. I'm getting everything that I want from the role that I'm in at the moment. So people are looking for that inherent change. They're looking for the step up. But as you say, the skill set is so different that it's not about selling a commodity, a product, a service. It's about selling ideas. Now, to a certain extent, some of the managers that move into a management role from a completely different skill set can apply some of their skills and have success through it. But the big difficulty that a lot of leaders and a lot of managers do not realize, and there are still many out there that haven't quite realized this themselves, is it's not about your skill set. It's about the skill set of other people and getting the other people to perform. And often what I say to managers and leaders is, they're the ones doing the job. You're not going out there and doing that job for them. You're being paid too much to do that. What are you being paid to do? You're being paid to influence, persuade, and get the best performance from the individuals that you've got within your team. Get them to collaborate, get them to work in a way that is conducive to them to perform at their best. And you're going to be a good leader. Now, that all sounds very, very woolly. And those skills are not hard skills like sales skills or research skills or some of the other skills that people use when they are moving up towards being a manager. So people applying those skills when they are a manager, do it my way, more often than not doesn't work.
Wow. For the people watching the show, consider this part one, because we're over time right now. I'm going to bring Robin back in a couple weeks. We're going to do another hour. I have so many questions to unpack with him. If he'll allow us to do that with him, it would be great. Before I let you go, though, for this part one of the series, I'm going to call it the two-part series with Robin. Tell us about the new book, The Authority Guide to Behavior in Business. It's sitting on my desk. I've seen The Authority Guide to Emotional Resilience in Business from years back, but the new book is out. We're going to put some screenshots of the book. Why did you want to write another book?
Well, it's not writing. It's not going back to square one and rewriting the book. It's the second edition, and since the first edition was published 10 years ago, we've been through a pandemic. We've learned more about ourselves as a species, really, in terms of our resilience. We've learned more about working together in teams, and we've learned more about organizations and organizational resilience. Now, it's a pocketbook. It's just a guide. It's an authority guide. Most people will get some insights and some inspiration through the book, but it's more about making sure that it speaks to them in an up-to-date fashion and in a relevant fashion, which is why I've produced the second edition with my publisher. The first edition is still out there. It's still very, very, very relevant and very valid. But if you want a more up-to-date version, the second edition is now available. It was made available in January 2025, and it's available on Amazon and through all good bookstores.
I love it, Robin. We're going to bring you back. If I can slice some more time out, I'm going to book you for another hour. We have so much to unpack. I'm almost thinking I need you on every 3-4 months. This has been great. We've learned so much about the mind, the heart, the gut, all about emotional intelligence, how to be a great leader, how to improve management. We're going to bring you back again. We want to specifically talk about entrepreneurship and then dive deeper into this AI component that you really seem to have caught on the wave and also becoming a leader. I'm expecting you to be on a lot of daises and keynote speaker events throughout the world. We're going to talk on phase 2, part 2, about the difference, if there is, in emotional intelligence between different countries, and do different societies and different types of people have different ways in which they approach things. I can't wait to get into that with you. But for now, Robin, I know I've took way more time than I was allotted from you and your team. So thank you so much for coming on the .com Magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series today.
It's been brilliant. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks.